In this video, I'm going to straight up give you the step-by-step how to go from a beginner or average player to be a master at Fortnite and competitive. I'm not saying everybody watching this video is going to go pro, but if you follow the steps in this video, I promise you'll get so much better. Let's start out by talking about what the actual steps to going pro are. Plain and simple. Step 1 is learning the mechanics of the game and mastering them, such as crosshair placement, piece control, peaks, all that stuff. We'll go into more details in a bit. Step number 2, once you got the mechanics down, is getting smarter in fights. It's one thing to have good mechanics, but you gotta learn how to use them. Step 3 is getting good game sense, that way you know how to actually play a real game. This is stuff like getting storm surge tags, knowing how to rotate dead side, knowing how to choose layers in endgame. And once you have all those things down, you have what it takes to get earnings in Fortnite. But to be a top tier pro, you gotta be one of the most disciplined people in the game and consistently practice all those aspects. Those are the stepping stones to going pro in Fortnite. But now let's hop in and really dissect each of those things, starting with learning the mechanics of the game. Of course, one of the most important mechanics to master is building. Step 1 to mastering building is learning the fundamental moves of the game. This includes things like ramp pushing, being able to ramp towards an enemy while building floors and walls, strengthening your structure, and being able to double edit and triple edit, which is good to do so the enemy can't cone you and stop your momentum upwards. And of course, tunneling. If you've ever watched a Fortnite competitive game, you know tunneling is one of the most crucial things, where you build floors above you and below you and walls to your sides. There's lots of different forms of tunneling, but I'm not going to go through all of them in this video. I do have a how to build guide which goes over everything in much more detail, linked down in the description. But 2 other things you gotta get down is how to side jump. Get comfortable building walls while you're doing your side jumps, that way you can stay protected in case somebody's above you trying to pump you. There's so much more build moves to master in the game, but those are some of the most crucial ones. Another important mechanic to get down really well, which kind of goes hand in hand with building, is crosshair placement. Crosshair placement is basically just having the most concise movements while building, editing, and even aiming. You don't want to constantly be over flicking while building and aiming because that's going to lead to inaccuracy. So the way you get better crosshair placement and get these tight movements down is mainly from just practicing free building. In my opinion, the best way to get better at this is hopping into my practice map where I have a free build with bots section. Go in there and start out on a slower speed. That way you can work on doing it in slow motion, and as you get comfortable doing it in slow-mo, move it to the faster speeds and try to keep that same crosshair placement applied. Keep working your way up until you can do it all in normal speed. Utilizing that slow-mo can also help you learn new build moves. One other important thing with crosshair placement is building fluidity in your gameplay. What I mean by this is watch this clip right here. When I'm doing this triple edit, every time I confirm an edit, my crosshair placement is immediately lined up with where the next edit begins. This kind of gets built with time as you build muscle memory with each of these different build moves, but it's super important to getting the fastest edits possible. So if your editing is a little bit slow and you're trying to speed it up, watch back some of your gameplay and see if you have fluidity like I just talked about. The next mechanic you gotta master is how to piece control. If you don't know what piece control is, it's just utilizing your build to either trap the enemy so that you can get the kill, for example getting them full boxed, or just getting like one wall on the enemy so that you can set up a peek and get damage dealt. In my opinion, piece control is literally just utilizing your build smartly in a fight. There's a lot of piece control maps out there. We just added a rapid piece control section to my practice map, and what you should be practicing here is trying to block the angle that the enemy is as fast as possible before you get hit. The enemy's gonna hit you if you expose yourself too long, but once you block that angle, try to piece up the enemy from behind a right-hand peak, whether it be a window peak or a top right triangle peak. Try to build that habit of getting builds around the enemy without ever exposing yourself, and this drill is a perfect place to practice that. There's 2 more mechanics that you 100% need to master. First off, peek shots, which kind of goes hand in hand with the piece control. Let's say you get your enemy piece controlled through a window peek. After doing that, you need to be able to take a peek shot where you step into the shot from behind cover and then immediately reset your wall. The goal is to get fast enough at taking these peek shots and resetting your wall that you can never actually get hit by the enemy. So while you're doing the rapid piece control drill, practice doing really good peeks and resetting your wall after every shot. Try to get to the point where you can do this drill on the hardest setting without getting hit by the enemy. That's when you know you have pretty dang good peeks. And the final mechanic that you should always be practicing is aim. In the practice map, we have an aim section where you can practice flick shots, long-range tracking, up-close tracking, and we added one fun bonus drill, which is a survival flick shot challenge. For all these aim drills, we have different difficulties and challenge modes. For example, in the aim duels one, you can enter challenge mode and it'll keep track of every shot you shoot and every shot you hit and give you an accuracy percentage at the end. So hop in, give those a try, and always keep your aim up to speed. And that pretty much is the end of learning mechanics. Of course, you will always want to be keeping your mechanics up to speed, practicing them fairly consistently in your warm-ups, but that is step 1 of going pro, mastering mechanics. Step 2 is getting smarter in fights. I'm going to lay out 5 ways you can do this. The first is mastering 1v1s. 1v1s are the fastest way, in my opinion, to get smarter at fighting. The reason is you just never stop fighting the opponent. As soon as one fight ends, you're thrown into the next round of fighting. So you can constantly make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. The biggest thing is don't get caught up in a cycle of doing the same mistakes on repeat. When you notice yourself doing something wrong, maybe clip it so you can watch it back at the end of the day and remind yourself, okay, I gotta stop doing that. Don't just brainlessly 1v1, try to improve and fight people that are better than you. When I was trying to get better, I would always try to fight the best people on my friends list. Or maybe find new people in a scrim server, a community Discord like my own. Or you can even just hop into public matchmaking. But by fighting people who are at your skill level or better, you can learn faster from your mistakes. I'll be releasing a 1v1 map that is like no other later this week. I'll put it down in the description when it's finally released. The second way to get better at fighting is just playing ranked mode. You fight a lot less players in ranked, but it's still good to grind it. The reason is ranked is always going to be laggier than creative, and it's more realistic. Obviously, creative fights give you fast-paced practice and you learn a lot from it. But fighting in ranked, you gotta learn how to get a health advantage at the start, deal with third parties, and position yourself in places where you're not gonna get third partied. It'll be the most realistic practice to a solo cash cup that you can find, so it's definitely worth grinding. If you're new though, you should definitely start out in 1v1s. There's so many ways to outplay your enemy, and I have many how to fight tutorials on my channel where I break down what I'm doing in my fights. There's literally a million tips and tricks, and there's more being made every single day. So to stay ahead of other players, I definitely recommend staying up to date with my fighting tutorials, Ken Bean's fighting tutorials, and some pros even make fighting tutorials. So if you want to stay ahead on fighting, definitely stay up to date on those. Step 3 to going pro is getting good game sense. This is one of the hardest ones simply because game sense is constantly changing. For example, movement meta is constantly changing. This season we have no movement, but last season we had swords and ODM. It's literally the complete opposite, and we have to completely learn a brand new meta every single season, which is why game sense is one of the hardest to keep up with. The best way to build game sense is by running scrims. There's a lot of different scrim servers out there, and just Google the names that I'm saying right now if you want to find them. And these are just a few, there's more out there. Vital scrims is like the pro practice, and it's kind of hard to get into if you don't already have a lot of PR, which is basically tournament ranking, but those are the best ones for many regions. Noble scrims are the best on EU, I've heard. Manu scrims are some open scrims on NA Central, and those are typically pretty stacked. There's a lot of other ones, but those are the only ones I really ever have played, and the only ones I can vouch for. I also do host scrims sometimes in my own Discord, so you can join that, link down in the description. But yeah, scrims is the best way to build game sense, but there's other things you gotta do to prepare, such as mastering a drop spot. How do you master a drop spot, you're wondering? Well, first you gotta pick one, and then learn how to loot the chest the most optimal way. Learn where you're gonna get metal from around there, how you're gonna rotate a max pull, how to fight off spawn. There's a lot of different stuff you gotta learn. Those are just a few of the main things. And I know I just said scrims are probably the best way to build game sense, but it's not gonna be the best way to build game sense unless you learn from your mistakes in scrims. This means you need to watch your games back, see what went wrong. Did you get lobby focused? Why did you get lobby focused? Find your mistakes by watching your games back. And this applies to tourneys as well. Me and my duo Trey just got done VOD reviewing our first week of FNCS, and we learned so much from it. Like I said, this is the longest process learning how to get good game sense, but it's probably the most important to getting better placements in tourneys. But I hope that helped you out. Similar to my fighting tutorials, I do have tutorials where I break down games from tournaments, so that could help you build that game sense as well. The final step to going pro in Fortnite is combining all the previous steps in one. Pros are pros because they've mastered all these better than anybody else, and they stay consistent and ahead of the meta. So even once you complete all these steps, you're only going to stay good at the game as you continue grinding. But if you love the game as much as any pro does, that should be no problem for you. Before I became a content creator, I was grinding this game every day, and across 5 years of playing it, I've never gotten bored of it. To be fair, if I wasn't making content out of it and competing in tournaments, I 100% would have gotten bored, which leads me to my last tip. No matter what you're grinding in life, you gotta find ways to enjoy it. For me, the only reason I've been able to keep playing Fortnite is because I'd make content out of it, and I love making content. But another way to stay motivated could be as simple as setting goals for yourself, whether it be hitting Unreal or placing top 500 in a tournament. It could be literally anything, but setting that goal helps you stay disciplined and motivated. I wish you all the best of luck in your grind. I've attached a lot of other videos down below that I think will help you out a lot, and my practice maps are down there as well. More content on the way, so stay tuned. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.